So welcome to Module 5 of Fabulous Foundations. You've been through a lot already in the last 5 months, and now you can see why I did do this as a kind of year-long or 10-month-long program, because the people that did it before you guys did it in 10 weeks. And you can see now how it takes a lot longer than each week to get the stuff done for each module. And people were getting a bit panicked about it, which is why I stretched it out over the 10 months. And even now, some of you are still, you're not up to the one we're on, and people are finding it difficult to get this much work done in a month. So it really shows the need of doing it over a longer period of time. And I hope it's helping you guys to do that. So I'm going to start, I'm going to share my screen with you. Where are we? Here we go. So I'm going to talk a bit about branding. I'm going to talk a bit about launching. Ask questions as you go along, as you always do. That's fine. And there will be a Q&A as usual in 3 weeks' time. Let me make that a bit bigger. So by now, hopefully, you've worked out your ideal client, or are very near to working out your ideal client. You've worked on your money mindset, so that should no longer be an issue, and you should still be working on it, even if you think you've got it sorted, because it's an ongoing thing. And you've got to this stage where you know what your message is, you know what you want to put out there. So then it gets into the real meaty bits, which is when you start branding for your business. Everything you've done thus far is kind of working on mindset, working on really getting you thinking about your ideal client and niching and being in this position where you can actually start branding. And up until now, this is why branding comes in so late. Lots of people do it as a module 1, and until you've worked out your ideal client, there's no way that that can really happen and what your message is. So let's get started about starting the branding process. So now that you have your ideal client worked out, branding will be much easier. And you can see why, because beforehand when you were branding, you were just basically thinking about what colors do I like? And what kind of designs do I like? And it's really not about that. It's about what colors and designs your ideal client will like. And that's often very different. So for instance, you can see here my gold and pink branding. I hate the color gold. I hate the color pink. They're probably my 2 worst colors. But I know that my ideal clients like them, or some of them do, most of them do. Eventually I will rebrand to a different kind of branding, but I think there'll always have to be a bit of girliness, if you like, in there, because that's what they like. And when we tested it, that's what people wanted to see. So there's no point me putting my colours in there, because the whole thing would be like black. And that wouldn't work for what I'm trying to portray. So always think about what your ideal client wants, not what you want, which is difficult. It's much easier if you are a bit like your ideal client. So having the right brand for your ideal client means you don't have to compete on price anymore, because once you put everything out there and your ideal client can see that everything is aligned, your branding is exactly what it needs to be, your copy is exactly what it needs to be, your images are for the kind of client that you want to draw in, price doesn't come into it anymore, because they will pay for you. If you leave it to develop on its own, your branding, which lots of people do, with no input from you, it will damage your business. It's called an accidental brand, and I'll talk to you about that on the next slide. But you have to get the branding right. Too many people just go with anything and say, I'll just put this out there and then I'll change it later on. And actually, you still will have a brand. It doesn't mean that you won't have a brand. You'll just have one that your clients have decided what your brand is for you. Be really consistent in your messaging from now on. You've worked out what your messaging is. You've worked out what you want to speak to your ideal client about. So be really consistent in it. Don't deviate from it and do something else because you see somebody else doing something that seems to be working for them. Stay laser focused on your messaging. And remember that the more you niche yourself, the more you have something unique to you, a USP, the better it's going to be. Don't try and be everything to everybody. And I know that that's scary. I totally get that if you niche yourself, you're kind of pigeonholing yourself and you're turning away clients that way. but it's so worth it. Only your ideal clients will come to you. And so when you go into branding, you're going to start going, in your head, you'll start going back a bit. So you kind of got really comfortable with ideal clients. So I remember with Carmela Weddings, I was like, okay, I know I want to do these really cool weddings. We do Shoreditch weddings, we do urban weddings. That's all I'm going to do. And I had that so solid. And then when it came to branding, I got scared. I was like, well, maybe we should put some pictures of like a marquee so that people know I will do a marquee. Maybe we should put a few more luxury pictures just in case. And no, it's the wrong thing to do. And actually, it's much better to really show your ideal client what you are all about with your branding. So don't get scared at this point. Niche it. It will really, really work. So what is branding? People used to think of branding, including me, as the logo and the colours, and that's it. And it really isn't just the logo, colour scheme and the font. Your branding is so much more than that. Your branding is everything about your business that people can see from the outside. It's all about perception. So if you think about it as the emotional and psychological relationship you have with your customers, that's what you're showing through your branding. So if you have a really strong brand, people will have emotions about it. They'll have opinions. You'll get reactions, not just from your ideal clients, but from others. And the others should have emotions, opinions, and reactions that you're repelling. And that's good. That means that you've got your branding right. So for instance, if you don't want to have budget clients anymore, budget clients will look at it and go, oh, no, that's not for me. And that's good. You want that. So have a think about your branding that you have right now before you change it, or if you've just done your branding, what emotions, opinions and reactions do you think that people will have to it? I know that with Carmela Weddings, it's a very 50-50 or even less than 50-50. The people that like it, even since we rebranded, go, oh my God, that's so exactly what I want. I want something that's really, really luxury but urban. I love how dark it is. People that don't like it go, why would you have pictures that are so dark for a wedding? Where's all the natural light? You know, where's all the pastel and the flowers? It doesn't even look like a wedding website, which is exactly what we want our non-ideal clients to think. So it's perfect for us, but it shouldn't be everybody kind of looks at it and goes, oh, that's nice. You know, you don't want that. It's much better to be Marmite and have people actually not liking your brand, because that means that the people that do like your brand are the opposite to that. So it's a good thing to gain emotions. And what the other thing that your branding is an agreement to consistently deliver whatever value you're associated with your business. And your branding should show the value that you associate with your business. And that might be through copy. Because copy is part of your branding. All of this is. So what not to do? Do not develop an accidental brand. This is when you say, oh, my friend made me a logo and it was blue because I really like blue, and it had triangles in it because I really like triangles. That will give you an accidental brand. So the first Carmela Weddings website was a completely accidental brand. I just didn't really bother with branding, just knocked up some logo. I think I paid a tenner for it and put it out there. It was all quite like little round circles. It was all dotty. And actually, now that I look back, it looked really 1950s. And my brand, whether I liked it or not, was there. And so people, when I asked people when I was going to rebrand, what do you associate with my brand? They said, DIY weddings, budget brides. And so I did have a brand, but it was completely accidental and it wasn't one that I wanted at all. But people will make a brand for you. Your potential clients will decide what your brand is based on their perception of what they can see right now on your website, through everything, through your wording, through your pictures, through your colors, through every single thing about your branding. So don't develop it accidentally. Have some input into this. Don't copy others' brands because they're a bit like what you want to do. You know, I've seen quite a lot, especially recently. I've got a good friend who some of you will know, called Helen Erickson, who has an amazing brand. really high-end luxury weddings. And then somebody came into the market and told the person that was doing their branding, well, I really like what Helen Erickson does and I want to do the same kind of thing. And so they basically just copied the brand. And it was near enough exactly the same. There was a few tiny tweaks, but all that did was dilute their brand because people thought they were a bit like Helen Erickson. So it didn't give them any of their personality in it, any of what they really wanted to do in it. So try not to choose the same colours, fonts as another. You've probably seen there's a couple out at the moment that is trying to be exactly like Carmela Weddings is. And it's diluting their brand rather than mine. So if you're the person that's looking around and thinking, well, actually, what do I like? Well, I like that company, so I'll do it a bit like theirs. Don't do it. Really try and think about what you want to bring into your branding, because it doesn't dilute the other person's brand. It will dilute yours, because people will have seen that brand already and go, oh, they're just a cheap version of. And you never want to be a cheap version of somebody else's branding. So really think about what you like, especially when it comes to fonts, colours. Don't spend a few years just getting on with your business, serving any customers that come along, because then that becomes your brand, that you'll just do anybody. You'll just work for anybody that will give you the money. It's much better for you to, now that you know your ideal customer, work out the right brand for only them. And if you don't position your brand in the market and decide where you are in the market, your customers, not only your customers, but the industry peers that you have, they will position it where they think it should be. And that's where it will end up staying. So you need to make sure that you position your brand in the market. Here's a question. Just look at that before we go any further. If we've been in the business for 12 years and want to reposition our brand, how is the best way to do that? You can easily do that. So you start rethinking your whole brand. Now that you know your ideal client, you rethink that. It's the same as what you would do if you were in the business for 2 years, which I was when I rebranded. You just decide, this is who we are now, and you change your brand to represent that. What will happen is the clients that are coming to you now will drop off because they won't like your new brand and it won't fit with their alignment of what they think you are, which means your prices will need to go up if you're going up to reflect this new brand, which means people will drop off, and that's okay. And it will take an amount of time for the new ideal clients to find you and to realize that actually you are now aligned with them. And some, they'll be looking at several others of the same standard, and they'll see that you're one of them. And that's exactly where Carmela Weddings is now. So we have just rebranded to a completely different, and same with industry peers. So at the moment, people that would give us weddings who were industry peers that were on the 30,000, they're now not doing that because they've looked at our brand and they've gone, that's not 30,000. And we've made sure our industry peers know about it as well, which is a good thing to do, know that that's not what we're about anymore. And we're going and talking to people. Sam tomorrow is going to talk to Bulgari, to, all of these big hotels that we wouldn't have operated in before, like we did the wedding at the Dorchester, which we wouldn't have done before. So it's about getting everybody to realize, but we know it's going to take time. We don't expect to get a single wedding for the rest of this year and into maybe 2 months of next year for our new brand. I mean, you can. Sometimes it goes quicker than that. I've seen people 3 months later, suddenly everyone realizes what their brand is about. But I'm aware that last time it took 7 months. So I'm assuming it's going to take as long this time for people to catch up with what we're doing, for our ideal clients to realize that there's another offering in the market in the position that they're already looking at. So don't be afraid to do it. Your brand can grow with you. You've been in the market 12 years. It's probably about time in 12 years you up that. Okay. So some ways to work out your branding, because it's very easy to say, yeah, make sure your branding speaks to your ideal client. And then you're like, well, how do I do that? I don't know what to do. So how I started, and this was really helped me all the way through, is to ignore all the business jargon that people make you fill in. People always make you fill in like a 20-page business plan, and different spreadsheets for these things, and you end up filling them in and them not really meaning anything to you, and they need to when it's about your branding. So these two things will really mean something to you. There's actually three: mission, vision, and values. So we'll start with your mission. So before you start thinking about colors or logos or how you want your website to look, have a think about what your mission is for your company. So your mission is the company's reason for existing. So it's exactly what it does and who it's for. It should be a short statement that I say passes the t-shirt test. You should be able to write it on a t-shirt. It needs to be really specific and tell everyone what you're doing that your competitors aren't doing. So Google's is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And if you Google mission statement and then brands that you love, they'll all have a mission statement that will tell you what they're there for, what they're doing, and who it's for. So basically, if it's for somebody like you. So I want you this month to write your mission statement. Why is your company there? Who is it serving? What is it there for? How is it different to everybody else? And then also your vision. So the vision's a bit different to a mission. Your vision is your company in the future. So this can be more descriptive, and it paints a picture of what you want the company to become if it continues doing the mission that it's doing now. And this vision will help drive your goals, especially if you have employees, as I know some of you do. If you have employees, you should all be driving towards the same goal. So Ford is to become the world's leading consumer company for automotive products and services. So that's what if they carry on doing what they're doing, that's what it will become. So have a think about what your mission is, what your vision is. What would you want your ideal clients to see there? You know, do any of you have a mission or a vision at the moment? Sort of. People are kind of like, yeah, kind of. I didn't have one, so Tanya doesn't have one. I didn't have one until I started this process and thought it was a bit corporate-y, and so that's why I'd never really bothered with it. But actually, when I've done it, it's really helped me realise where I want to go. We want to be the leading luxury urban wedding planners in the UK. So it really helps when we know that to drive where we're going to. So Janelle's changing hers. It's outdated and too corporate. Yeah, it's really easy to get corporate. Michelle says the mission is to create luxury bespoke wedding cakes for discerning clients who want more. Yeah, so it's a little bit like your elevator pitch, and that can help. And so if that's your mission, where do you want that company to go? Do you want to be the leading wedding cake maker? Exactly. So have a think about that, and it can be a lot more descriptive. So this month we're going to talk about that, and also your core values. So for me, I actually find values much more important than mission or vision, because it helps me with, when I think about my branding, I think, well, these are my values. Can you tell what my values are from my website? So if you look at Just Own This, for example, my values are to be authentic, have a passion for passing on knowledge. I want to empower women. I always want to lead with honesty and tell it like it is, but I want to keep business being fun and not dull. So they're my 5 values, and those values support the mission. So limit them, don't go on. Try and keep it to like 3 to 5, because they really need to support that mission. When you've written that mission down about where you want what your company does, do those values support your mission? So they're your beliefs or principles. And I think these things can really help you to get to grips with what your brand is about. Because now I know those things, I can always say, from a perception point of view, from someone looking into my company who might be watching me on Facebook, because that's all part of the branding, who might meet me, who might see webinars from me, who might just see my logo, who might see my website. Can they tell all of those 5 things? And I think at the moment they can. And if you've got that right, it means you've got your branding right. So think about what your values are. Can anybody chuck any values out at me that their company has right now, just as a help other people to kind of get what we mean. Oh, Janelle says she wants to be the leader in giving a wedding experience to destination wedding couples without the cookie cutter hotel experience. That's really good. So one of Michelle's values is quality. So that's good. And try and put that into like a short sentence. So like quality in what? In everything you do. Fun is a really good core value. I think having fun in your business is really good. And that will help when you start to get employees and things like that. That will go right through your branding into who works for you and how you are as a boss. Personable and non-judgmental, that's great. And I think that shows in the things you do, actually, Debbie. Craftsmanship, that's a great one to have. So put what kind of craftsmanship. Really make it so you understand it. Fun, honesty, integrity, they're really good words. Integrity is a really good one. Like I have authentic on there, which is a bit like integrity, and it's really important to me that people see that. Core values are trust. Yeah, trust is important. Service, that is a hug, not a handshake. Love that. Because it really explains, and actually that could go into your mission or your vision, because it's so descriptive. It would work really well with that. Brilliant. Okay, so this month we're going to work out what they are before we do any kind of branding. And if you have branding already and you write down your values and you look at your branding and go, actually, I'm not sure you can see that in my branding, in everything I do, then we can put that in. Competitors. Now, you know all about community over competition, but also we have to be aware that we have competitors and that we have to analyze those competitors. Is key, because if you don't know who you're up against, you don't know why you're different. So you need to really have a look. What is different about you in regards to your competitors? And your competitors might be geographically, they might not be. They might be price-wise. What problems does your service alleviate? So go back to your message that you did in Module 4 for Ideal Client. Think about your message there. So what is your message? What problems do you alleviate compared to your competitor? How are you different? We're going to do a task in this month's PDF, which is to look at our competitors to see what makes you different. Start thinking about what feelings their websites and everything on their websites, their pictures, their copy elicit for you. So go on them as if you didn't know anything about them, and think about what opinions and perceptions of that brand would be just by looking only at their branding. So only what you can see of them without knowing them as a person. And then if you don't know them, or you then get to know them, have a look at whether your perceptions of the brand were right, because that's another thing you need to do. You need to make sure that when people meet you in person, all those values that you spoke about before, all the things that you're putting into that branding are true even when people speak to you, because you are the epitome of your branding. So you have to live that branding. So for instance, there's, I know some of you know about this already, because I spoke about it on GSD Society, but I had an experience with somebody who's a kind of coach, but also a journalist, who her branding is very loving, light, kindness to all people. These are her values that she puts out there. And when I asked her a question, I got the opposite of that back. So in person, she didn't uphold those values that she puts all over her website, which means that when it comes to know, like, and trust, I immediately didn't trust anything else that she said on that website. So I would never invest in her. And that's how people will be with you if you're not the person that you're saying that you are in all of your branding. You're not living your brand. So make sure you are authentic. If you're, so for instance, with Just Own This, I don't really talk about kindness and things like that in the values, because I'm really real and I'm really honest. And sometimes that means I can't be that kind to people because I have to tell them things that they might not like about their companies to make them better. So I'm authentic in it, in that, I will be a bit harsh to you. And so I don't really say, you know, I come from a place of love, I will softly take you through. I don't use any of those kind of wordings because I know that if they met me in person, that wouldn't match up to who I am. So it's pointless doing it. It's much better for everything to be on brand. So have a look at your competitors, see if you think they are the same. And if you've done this before, let me know. You know, if you've looked at a competitor's websites and gone, oh, I think this about them. And then actually when you've spoken to them in person, that's not what they portray. It's really important because it means that you already have an edge over your competitors because you are going to be authentic. So find these points of difference because these little points in between, that's what makes up your brand. That's what's different about you to all of those other people. So it's going to be easier for you to put that into your branding. So thinking about potential clients and branding, and see that there's a question, so I'm just going to go on to it. Sometimes it goes a bit weird on my computer. Here we go. This is the bit I struggle with. Elaborate, Michelle, and take yourself off mute if you need to tell me. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Turn your mic up. That's it. Yeah.
No, I struggle with the competitor analysis and finding my differences
between you and them.
Yeah.
Well, have a think about what was your messaging in your ideal client module. So what was the bit that was the message that you wanted to bring?
It was luxury products, luxury taste.
Right. So it's luxury. So first of all, you have to look at your competitors in your area where people might Google and see if there's anybody else that's saying that they're luxury.
Yeah,
and then
not, which is
okay, that's good. So that's really good. So then you have to look further out to see where the luxury ones are. Yeah.
It almost appears like everybody is the same.
Yeah. And if everyone appears the same and is talking to the same ideal client, it's not going to work. So what you then have to do is find the bits in between. I would say, like, perception only on your brand and on you is that you are a luxury cake maker who's more down to earth.
Okay.
So easy to work with, you can tell your ideas to, non-judgmental, whereas I've dealt with other luxury cake makers who are not like that, and I would feel intimidated by them, and I don't think that you would feel intimidating to a bride because you're friendly and you're approachable. And maybe you put that in there. Have a think about, it doesn't have to be about what you do with your cakes, it's about the service as a whole. What makes you different?
Okay, cool.
Have a think that way. You're luxury, not snobbery. Exactly. You know, you're like real luxury. Luxury is so subjective.
Yeah.
You know, it means a different thing to everybody. Like, we're luxury urban, but we're not ostentatious. But people who are doing luxury weddings generally have a slightly ostentatious edge. We don't have that. So that's part of, you know, our USP. So yeah, have a think a bit deeper. No worries. Okay, so think about your potential clients. Put yourself in your client's shoes and start to think about how you want your potential clients to see you. So when they look at your website, think about the words. How do you want them to feel? I want them to feel, when they look at Carmela Weddings, I want them to feel excited. I want them to feel relieved that actually there is someone that gets what they want for their wedding that is a bit different. I want them to feel like we get them, so they feel they're in safe hands. What do you want them to read or see about you and your business? And the opposite, what don't you want them to read and see? To make sure you have the right brand there. What do you want them to think that you're passionate about? Passion builds excitement. That will attract clients to you. So for Just Own This, people can see as soon as they look at any of my branding that I am excited about people making money in their businesses. And they can see that. And so if they see that, they're attracted to me because they're also excited about making money in their businesses. So like attracts like. Remember when you're doing this to always keep your ideal client in mind. when you do any of these exercises on the PDF this month, especially your core values, think about that ideal client and what you want them to see about your business, because that's the most important thing. Okay, so then we get into, once you've kind of worked all of that out, you can have a think about your brand board. So all the questions you've answered, put together with your ideal client profile that you did in module 4. And this will help your designer to come up with your brand board, or it will help you if you're doing it yourself. And lots of people do their own sort of brand board work before handing over to a designer, and some people even design their own branding themselves, and that's fine. If you do decide to do your own branding, then I want you to read Fiona Humberston's How to Style Your Brand first, because it takes you through step by step on how to do your own branding. It also, it's a great book anyway, and it takes you, I used it, even if you have a designer, because it takes you through step by step so that you understand what the designer is going to be looking for when you hand everything over to them. Your brand is your shop window. So if you do have a marketing budget, we've said before, SEO, visibility, and then your website, because people will get an impression of you. If you have a cheap budget website, people will just assume that you do a cheap budget service. You know, that's just how it is. When I think about my website from 3 years ago and my website now, it didn't align. It now does align to the money that I want to bring in. And I actually think at the moment that Just Own This doesn't completely align with who I'm now trying to serve. So that means that that's going to need a rebrand, because I didn't use a massive marketing budget on it. And yet the people that I'm now attracting are generally earning a lot more. And so I have to change with them. So a brand identity board is a summary of the main things to take into account as you design your visuals for your ideal client. So whether that's on website, on stationery, on Facebook ads, they all go together on a brand board so that you can use the same patterns all the time, the same fonts all the time. The brand board will be made for you. So ideas like your vision, your mission, your ideal client, and your values will be reflected in these design decisions that you or your designer makes on a brand board. So your branding should be cohesive in all platforms. So what you don't do is use some things and some colors on the website, then social media is completely different, then your proposal is completely different. It all needs to be aligned across. So a good brand designer will give you a brand board that you can use everything. For instance, we've got 5 different logos that can be used on different things, because we know that it doesn't work as well on Twitter than it does on Instagram than it does on the website. The main components you'll need to define for your visuals, if you're doing it yourself, Canva is a really good way of doing this, is color palette, your typography, which is what kind of wording, as in fonts you're going to use, and there may be more than one, logo variations for different things, textures and patterns, and photography, what kind of photography you're going to use on your website. So if you have a brand designer doing your brand board, make sure all of this stuff is on there. You know, it's much easier. What people do is they don't know about branding, so they get their brand designer to do it and to do everything. And actually, this is really helpful for you if you know what they should be doing and how they're coming to those decisions, because then you know what you need to hand over to them to come to those decisions. Use Pinterest to show your designer what you love, but don't just put a board together and put loads of pictures on it and go, I like all of these brands, I like all of these logos. I want you to write why it resonates with you and your ideal clients, because you might put one kind of brand board on there and go, this typography I think is really modern, and so I think it will resonate. Whereas this color palette I think will resonate. There might be different bits from different brands, so make sure you spend a long time doing that. Here's some examples. So if we look at the first example here, what kind of emotions or what do you think that they're trying to portray, Marquee 1, with their branding? What words come up for you? And let's see if I know these 3, so let's see if it's right. And they are actually listing the branding that they want you to feel. Yeah. male, masculine, so right. And yeah, stylish. They're very modern. Sporty, yeah. So that's good. So just from those things, which is patterns, if you look at the typography on the bottom, different ways of having the logo and the color palette, as well as things like the fact that it's circular, makes a difference. So then if we look at the middle one, we can see how completely different that is. So you can see their ideal client just by looking at not just their colors, but their typography, the photographs, the imagery that they want to use. It really makes a difference. And then the third one is different still. They have not gone for circular and they've gone for hexagonals in their imagery, and really, really different patterns. And those patterns speak to a modern kind of bride. And if you look at the actual colours, colours always mean something. Black, for instance, either means budget or luxury, but it can mean either. So you have to be careful about what you put with it to make it not go the other way. And orange means budget. Think of EasyJet. When we see orange, psychologically, we see cheap. So you have to be really careful about what colours you use and how you use them. And How to Style Your Brand takes you through all of that colour psychology. And we've got Sarah from Design by Orla, used to be Verity Road, Sarah Shuttle, coming in next week to talk to us about all of this. My colours are very close to the middle one. Okay, that's cool. So you're modern, but quite girly still. And luxury because you've got the greys in there. So yeah, it's good to know what things mean rather than just to pick colours because you like them. So colour psychology. Colour sends silent messages. So look into what you choose. Write down as many words as you can that you want to associate with your brand. Then make sure the colours, typography, shapes, patterns convey those words. So with Carmela Weddings, we wrote like 50 words down that we wanted to make sure were conveyed before we even started looking at, what shapes we would have, what colours we would have. There's some really good resources for knowing what the psychology of colours are. So the brand stylist, Fiona, actually has some free resources. That one at the bottom there, the resources how to, and that goes through all of the colours. So even if you don't buy her book, it has it there. There's a couple of others I found here that were quite good about colour psychology and what the colours mean to make sure. Anne-Marie says, I almost chose orange. I've gone black, white and green. I'm not really sure about how I would add patterns. Is it any for backgrounds? Yeah, so it's for backgrounds, or if you just have, so for instance, with our Carmela Weddings, we wanted to know that if we just put a pattern, people would still know it was us, even if we had no wording. So for instance, if you can look at the Just Own This on the page right now, if I took Just Own This off of there and you just saw a gold splodge, I would want you to think of Just Own This. So it's about having patterns throughout and keeping them the same. So have a look at those three. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So have a look at the colour psychology. I think colour psychology is more important than pretty much anything else you do in branding, because it can very quickly give people an impression of your branding, even before they read anything, look at photos, anything else. They look at the colour and they go, oh, cheap, not cheap, or warm, or not warm, or approachable, or too high end, intimidating. Colour can do all of those things. So a few tips: keep it simple. Don't confuse potential clients by going way out there on brand, because it will just confuse everybody if you have so many different patterns, so many different logos, so many different typography. I've seen somebody with a website with 5 different fonts in it, and I don't know who they are, what they're doing, which you don't want. Confusion is not a positive emotion. Work out your strategy. Before you do your branding, think, are you price-led or are you service-led? Quality-driven, luxury-driven? Decide where you're going to position yourself in that market before you start thinking about colours and things like that, because that will have an influence on what kind of colours and things you pick, depending on where you're positioning yourself in the market. When you know your ideal client, your messaging and your brand identity, keep it going through everything else. So people have some really, really good branding. They have really good website. They have brilliant colors. And I feel like I know who they are. And then I read the language that they're using. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's diluted the brand. I don't really know who they are. The language has to be the same, like everything does. Where you meet your potential clients for consultations, keep it all going. If you need to use a copywriter who can make the language be what you want it to be, then do it. Need to be sure that my colours work, Janelle says. It's burgundy, rose gold and blush. Yeah, and a way to do that is to ask somebody who is on the periphery of your ideal client what they think your branding means, what they think your branding is. What does it say about who your ideal client is? And if, like me, you do that and they say DIY budget and you're looking to only service the lower end of the market, then you know it doesn't, and you might have to change it. But it's best to know and change it. Give your brand a voice. So for the old Carmela weddings, we spoke in a very hipster-like way. It had a voice, the whole brand did. And you'll see other people doing that, speaking in a certain way because it makes sense to their ideal client. To give your brand a voice that's on your Instagram captions, that's on everything you do, on your newsletters, that branding still has to be there. While it's tempting to do the branding yourself, it could cost you more later to redesign your brand if it's not attracting your ideal clients. So if you can put money into it, do put money into it. And, you know, branding costs anything from 1,000, which is Carmela weddings from a year and a half ago, cost 1,000 to now 7,000, because I'm trying to attract a higher end client. So if they don't see a higher end website, they won't trust you to be as high end as they think that you are. So make sure it's all aligned. Okay. So going from branding onto your personal branding shoot, because branding goes all the way through to everything. And in your website, it's so important to have an about you page that looks at who you are as a person, not just what you do, not just how good you are at the job, but who you are. Because as we've said so many times, people buy from people, so they need to see you. So it's important to have a professional branding shoot about you for your website. And you can use that same branding shoot on so many other things. So it's definitely worth doing one. I've seen too many people have an about you page and it's them with a wine in their hand. You know, no, this can't work. It has to be, unless like that's really your brand, it cannot be a snapshot on you on a night out. So you can use the photographs on your About Me page, PR opportunities that you get, social media, on emails, on opt-in. So it's totally worth the investment. It's a chance to show your ideal client that you're a bit like them, that you resonate with them, that you get them. It forms part of the know, like, and trust factor. Make sure the shot shows your branding in the right location, in the right style. So if you're saying you're high end, don't have a branding shoot somewhere in front of a Travelodge. You know, think about where your branding shoot is going to be. If you're an indoorsy person, do not be walking across grass in wellies. You need to be showing who you are in this. And it's really fun. It can be a really good way of really showing who you are. And don't feel that your personal branding shoot needs to be you doing the thing you do, like making a cake or planning or on a treadmill because you're a personal trainer. It doesn't have to be. This is the you they're buying from, the real you as a person. I was going to ask that. Good, you don't need to. What do you need for this shoot? You need a location that works with your brand. You need a Pinterest board showing the kind of style and looks you want. Really helps your photographer, because photographers are like, what do you want? Oh, I just want to show, you know, me being really approachable. That doesn't help. Put a board together. If you go onto Pinterest and put lifestyle images, there'll be loads of them there and you can narrow it down. So I was putting, for Just Own This, female entrepreneur lifestyle images, and then I'd find pictures of people that I wanted, like people in cafes and stuff like that. And then I showed my photographer that, and it really helped her know exactly what I was looking for. Cheryl says I have a great shot from Emma Davies last shoot. What I actually love though is the bits that you think are the bits that went wrong on the shoot can sometimes turn out to be the best photo. There's one of me for Just Own This, laughing with my head in the air, walking down the street, and actually it was an outtake and we were just mucking about, but I look completely free in it. And that's what I wanted to convey, freedom. So we've used it loads. Michelle says, love my personal branding shoot. Thanks to Lisa for getting me to do it. I love your personal branding shoot too. Oh, Janelle says that's her favourite one. It's lots of people's and it resonates with them. So, you know, be yourself, muck about. Don't feel you have to pose all the time. You'll need 2 to 3 hours of a photographer's time. You'll need a hair and makeup artist, even if you don't normally wear hair and, get your hair done or have your makeup done, still get one because it just looks better on photographs. And the right clothes for your brand, which was so difficult this time. Because last time it was like, yeah, we can be trendy, we can wear hipstery kind of clothes. And this time it's like, what do you wear if you're luxury and urban? It was much more difficult. So we had to get a stylist involved to help. So, you might need a stylist. You usually won't. There's a link to a Pinterest board there that is the one that I put together for Just Own This to give to my photographer. So you can see the kind of things that I was looking to get her to do. And then if you look at my website, you should be able to see that the personal branding shoot does go across from that Pinterest board. And then we get to launching. So once you've got your brand done, you've got your website there, you've done your personal branding shoot, there's a great picture of you, then it's on to launching. So first of all, when you're thinking about launch, do everything backwards. So book your web designer in advance, because most web designers, if they're any good, won't be available for 3 months anyway. So book your web designer so that you have a deadline to get all of the rest of the stuff to them. So let's say we wanted someone to do rebranding for us and we booked them and they were available, they're going to start in August. And you know that at some point between now and August, you need to do your copy or get a copywriter to do it. You need to work out your ideal client, make sure you get everything across to them. You need to do your Pinterest boards. You need to get your personal branding shoot done. If you need product photos, you need to get those done. It helps you have a timeline that you can work towards, to know when you can hand all of that stuff over to your designer and let them get on with it. So agree a date with your designer, but make sure you check everything beforehand that you've got all of these things. Don't say to the designer, can you start next week? Because you won't have everything that you need. Work out a launch strategy. Don't just launch. I've seen so many people just kind of launch really like, oh, well, there it is. Here is my new brand. You've put all this effort in. So you want to shout about it. You've done all this work on your ideal client. You want everybody, especially your peers, to know what you're doing. So work out a strategy of how you're going to launch. If you've already launched but you want to rebrand, still relaunch and shout about your new branding. If you're relaunching, it's just as important as if you're launching right now new. Start social media before you launch and do a countdown. All about creating a buzz. You've seen me do it twice now. It's about creating that buzz. You need everybody to be talking about your branding the week of your launch. It's really important to get everything that you want to get out of it. If you're going to have a blog, make sure you have 3 or 4 blogs already written and up on the site when you go live so it doesn't look like you're new. To just write those beforehand. So Janelle says, my personal branding shoot fell through and I'm currently working on my website with my web designer. I had a few pictures of me that I'm using, but not really fond of them. Please just get another personal branding shoot done. But if you're a wedding planner, there will be a photographer that will do it for less cost as long as you will credit them. You're likely to use photographers in the future. So build those relationships so that you can get one done. It will be totally worth it. So we said you need a launch strategy. So with your strategy for launching or relaunching, decide how you will get the most press coverage, PR, social media, and then have a strategy accordingly. So for Carmela Weddings, we knew we would get coverage on social media from sending out invites. And we knew that we would spend a lot on those invites because they were going to be the thing that everybody took photos of and put on Instagram to know what our brand is like. We also knew we would get coverage in PR because we wrote to lots of PR and said, would you like us to write this article, this article, this article? When they said yes, we said, can you please hold it and put it out this week so that everything happened at the same time? And PR-wise, we knew that by having a big launch party that people were talking about would create that buzz. But it's not always right to have a party. It's not always right to send out packages. It's not always right to send out press releases. It completely depends on your brand. Who do you want to be shouting about you? I wanted bloggers and other wedding planners to be shouting about me. So I made sure the strategy included them. So make all of it personal. If it's a launch party, if it's a press release, if you're sending packs out, it needs to be personal. Don't just send out an email press release. I get 5 a day. I just delete them. So does everybody else, because no one cares. It needs to be something that people can see, touch, feel, take photos of. And if you do send packages out, which is a good launch strategy to have, we did that for Carmela Weddings 2 years ago. We sent out packages to everybody. It was kind of before everybody was doing it. And so we got lots and lots of attention. And pretty much every blogger that we sent one to not only put it on their Instagram feed, but invited us to write for them. So we got exactly what we wanted out of it. And I have good relationships now with all of the bloggers because of it. So what we did is made it really, really personal. Not only did we send out a light box with their blog name on, ready to go so they could take a picture, so we knew that's what was important for social media, but we also wrote a really personalized handwritten note saying what we liked about their blog, what we liked about them, why we thought our brand aligned with theirs. And most people who came back to me said the reason that they loved it so much is because it was personal. You include things in your package, Joanne, that is something that shows your branding. So we did a light box because that was kind of new at the time and very urban, and we did a print picture as well that said something like where there is love and beauty, you can't go far wrong, because that was kind of on our branding. Now this time when we came to do it, we said, what can we send that really shows luxury urban? And there was nothing, because there is no luxury urban in the UK yet. So there was nothing that we could send that really showed what we do. So we instead decided to have a party that showed what luxury urban is, with thousands of pounds worth of flowers hanging from a ceiling, but with beatboxers there. So it kind of showed the two in a basement bar. So it showed the two joined together. So it depends exactly on what you want your branding to show. But if you do send packages out, decide what you want to gain from it and ask for that. So the first time we did it, we wanted to gain relationships with planners, and we wanted to be featured in their blogs. We wanted to be able to write articles for their blogs. And so we asked in the personal letter, is there any way we can write an article for you? And they all came back with yes, other than one. But all of the rest came back with yes. So it was totally worth it. Ask what you want. If you want to take them out for coffee to get to know them, because you might not be in the wedding industry, you might be aligned to a completely different kind of client, ask what you want from them. If you are looking at influencers, because having high-level influencers is a really good strategy these days to launch. So if you're going to try and align yourself with some Instagram influencers who have millions of views, then ask them, oh, I would absolutely love it if you could. I've seen somebody do this recently. They have they design clothes for middle-class children, really expensive clothes for children. And so they basically sent a box with a couple of the clothes in to these influencers and said, would absolutely love it if you could use these on your Instagram feed. And they did. They dressed their daughter up in it and they sent them out. And it was, they got loads of orders from it because that's what they wanted from it. They wanted people to know who they were. And doing influencer marketing is a big, big thing now, aligning yourself with people that have basically the followers that you want. Instead of sending out things to lots of brides, because how can you do that? You go to the bloggers, because the bloggers are the influencers for those brides in the wedding industry. So think about your industry and who those influencers are. If you have any PR opportunities before launch, tie them into the launch so that everything happens at once. Have that big impact. And that is that. Any questions for me at the moment? I know it's a meaty one and it's a lot of work that you're going to be doing. Don't expect your branding to be done by the next time that we speak. because that's not what happens. Generally, what people do with this bit is they've done their ideal client work by now, and then they go through the PDF and start writing down their values and everything in there, and having just a little think about whether those things are showing on their website at the moment, whether the wording and everything is right, and then come back to it after you've had some time to think about it. Book in your branding designer, but still carry on with the rest of the course. And your branding should be happening in the background. You don't stall everything else while you wait for your branding to be done, because there's other things there that you need to know about. Like sales funnels, you could be doing that at the exact same time as your branding is being done. But don't expect it to be done in a month. You remember, this course went weekly. I didn't expect everybody to do it in a week, and I don't expect you to do it in a month. But even if you're not ready to brand yet, or if you have branded and you think your branding is right, still do the PDF, because it will really help. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if you answered my earlier question. Should you wear the same colours for your branding shoot that are your brand colours? No, not necessarily. It doesn't need to be like that, because you as a person might not be the same. Okay, that shouldn't be just for Sam. I don't know what you mean. I probably missed a bit here. In fact, I bet I've missed quite a few things up here. No, I answered privately, sorry. Oh, okay, don't know what that means. So yeah, that's that. So it would be great to see what you do. If you want to show me your brand boards or show everybody in the Facebook group, would love to see them. Put them on Facebook group. Let's have a look at what you've got. Let's see if it does tie into your ideal client. That's the only way you can find out, is by asking people who are your ideal client. And if you get any questions, I'll be here in 3 weeks' time, and I can answer all of your questions then about branding, because often you need to go into it, do the work, and then come back and ask the questions, because you'll start doing your mission and getting annoyed, like everybody does, and doing your vision, and then realizing that you need some more help, and that's fine. And I'll be on the Facebook group as well, like daily. If you want me to answer anything in there, #AskLisa, because I always make sure I read them, and then I'll come and answer the questions for you. But also, if you want more help with it, especially with the colour psychology and that kind of thing, Sarah Shuttle's going to be coming on. I think it's next week. Might even be this week, to talk about, if you have a look in the events, yeah, it is this week. Have a look in the events at the timing, but she'll be able to answer all of your questions. She did my Carmela Weddings branding, and she's one of the top designers for female entrepreneurship right now. Yeah, this Thursday. So yeah, ask any questions to her as well. We're getting her on just for you guys. So do take, do make use of it. Okay, I'll leave you with it. I've already uploaded the PDF to the members area in the website. So go over there, download that PDF and start working on it, and ask any questions as you go along. And I will speak to you all again soon. I took an hour exactly. I knew I would. I always say I'm going to take half an hour, and then I just chat. Okay, I'll speak to you guys later. Have a good rest of bank holiday.